Down the Road Show is a product of Murdock Worldwide Entertainment. This is Down the Road Show. This is entertainment, all up in your face.
And I stuck it under my armpit. I had a jacket on, and I know it's going to happen. Of course, the convention's in Scotland. I'm with Ronnie Cox and Terrell Rothery and Janet Fraser, and one of the first conventions I've ever done. I'm like kind of nervous, and I get there, and being, in Scotland, they're having a few pints, if you know what I mean, and a few of the gentlemen have their kilts on, and they're quite bevied, as they say in Scotland, and I go last, and they're like, Beckett. So I'm like, I come out, and I grab the mic, and I go, God, it's so great to be here in Scotland. Like, yes, and I can see them, like the rumblings, when I'm talking. They go, for God's sakes, man. And one guy goes, hey, man, where's your accent, for God's sakes? And I pull out the Scotland scarf and put it over my head, go, right bloody here, mate, end of story. It's like, yes! Scotland! But as I was saying, I got on the plane, I had a jacket on the way here last night. And I thought, oh, God, I was getting, just ready. It's pouring rain in Vancouver. I step out of the plane, there's that little crack between the plane and the gate. And I get on there, and I just feel this waft of like, oh my God, I'm in a convection oven. I go to the washroom, take my jacket and shirt up, pack it in my bag, and I don't think that's going back on again. I brought that for the ladies, the jacket. Anyway, it's great to be here. I've never been to Phoenix before. I don't know how much outside time I'm going to get, but it's awesome. I've met a bunch of people so far over online and signed some autographs and met them, and everyone's been really, really nice to me, so I appreciate that. I had a great time. I'll talk a little bit about Stargate. Obviously, I'll talk mostly about Stargate, but I had a great time being on this series. I don't know if some of you know, my character initially wasn't a regular on the show. Initially, they had him, my agent said, maybe a few episodes here. We're not sure, it could go more. And I'm like, great. So I remember doing the pilot with Martin Wood, and he's one of the directors. Many of you probably know who he is. And he said to me during the pilot, I'm like, this show's going to be big. I could just tell Robert Patrick's there. There's a really good buzz going around. And he said, listen, Damien Kindler, who's one of the writers, wants you to talk to him. He's doing a really big Beckett episode. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Where is he? He's up in the office. I'm like, okay. I go, when's the episode? He goes, oh, it's episode 7 or 8 or something like that. And I'm like going, yes. As an actor, like, really. So I go up there, and he goes, he wants to talk to you about Scotland and stuff, and you just get to know you a little bit so you can make a backstory for your character, because it's going to be a really heavy episode for him. So that was Poisoning in the Well. It's a big episode. And after that episode, that's right, ladies, that's when Purna dies in my arms. Purna dies, Beckett dies. Where's the bloody turtles? I don't know. Beckett never gets any girls. So that's what happened. So it was really cool. And then, of course, when Beckett did die, thanks to a lot of the fans, the Carson fans out there, and people that mailed in, the miraculous thing about sci-fi is you can come back as a clone. Thank you. Don't mess with Beckett. That's like killing a puppy. It's not fair. I said, I remember when they told me, he said, they were going to we have to kill Beckett. And I'm like, really? I said, why? So one of the main characters, just a story arc thing. I'm like, okay. I don't think the fans are going to be too happy. And they're like, yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I'm like, oh, no. So, and then I was down in Los Angeles, and there's a pipe band rally at the Bridge Studios. And it was on the news, and a bunch of the Beckett fans had put Beckett on their bums and on their underwear and bent over and mooned the studio. It has Beckett on it. And if you Google it, you can see, Save Carson Beckett. It's hilarious. But anyway, thanks to all the fans and all the support you've done for the show on behalf of everybody, all the my castmates. I know we really appreciate it, and honestly, there's so many different shows and television and options for you guys to watch, and we're really thankful that you watch Stargate and enjoy it. So many people have come up to me and said, it's gotten us through some tough times in our family. People be ill or whatever. And I say, well, I really appreciate that, but you realize I'm not a really doctor. But it has, it's a lot of escapism for people. I think it's a fun thing about Stargate. It's a family. Families can watch it together and enjoy it and take it in, where so many other shows, okay, kids, it's time to go to bed. It's something you can do together. I'll say this, people watch football, people watch baseball, and people watch sci-fi. And it's a great fan base, man. I love, you come here now, so many people, where'd you meet your wife? Oh, we met at a convention, we did this. And I was just in Germany, and I saw the same fans I saw in London, then I was in Vancouver, and I saw some of the same fans were there too. So it's a big community of people that's what you guys do, and you love it. And, and I love it too. I've been all over the world and met so many great people. People all say, oh my God, are the fans crazy? I'm like, well, there's a couple fans here or there that are a little out there, but, generally speaking, we're all crazy anyway, really, when you think about it. But it's just such a great fan base, people are into their shows, and I also thought, oh my God, what am I going to do when I get to a convention? They're going to ask me all these questions about what episode and what you're doing. I went back and watched all the season 1 episodes just in case. I'm like, okay, now I'm ready. Hit me with questions right now. No one ever asked me a question, The only thing was I was in Germany, and this reporter, and in Germany, I don't know if you know this, but this was like first season, so 7 years ago. Everybody smokes, right? And they're smoking inside everywhere, And so in the convention, there's a guy smoking, and the thing about the German people, I don't know if anybody's German out there, but sarcasm doesn't really translate so much in Germany. So when I'm there, and the language varies a little bit, and the German fans are great, but they're very quiet, and they really listen. So example, I'll do a talk, and later on they'll come up, and I'm like, I'll make a joke, and it's like crickets, right? And I was like, oh my God, I'm dying up here. And I have another 55 minutes to talk. And then I'll come off later off the stage, and they'll come up to me and go, your talk was hilarious. And I'm like, oh, really? Oh my God, I laughed my head off. I'm like, I didn't hear it. It's inside laughter. So the guy's smoking, he goes, Paul, I have a question for Dr. Paul McGillion and Carsten Beckett on the show Stargate Atlantis. I'm like, yes, yes. And he goes, your character on the show Stargate has a humorous sense of humor. I'm like, thank you. You as a person, Paul McGillion, are you a funny person? And I said, well, I'd like to think I'm pretty funny. Yes. That's what I get. I'm like, oh my God, shoot me. Put me out of my misery. But it's great. But the thing about the German people too, it's really fun because I was just in Germany in Dusseldorf at FedCon, which is a really big convention with Richard Dean Anderson, myself, and Scott Bakula, and we were taking photo ops. I don't know if you ever had a photo op with me, but I don't stand right beside, like most times some of the actors, I won't say who they are, they don't really interact with the fans at all. You know what I mean? They'll just take a photo. It's just like a conveyor belt. The person standing beside them. I, on the other hand, I like to put people in headlocks and things like that, and have some fun or get a big hug. I mean, Jesus, if I'm gonna be with all these hot women, I may as well hug them, So I'm like, so when I go to Germany, all of a sudden, there's those guys have maybe 20 people getting pictures with them. I have like 200 people getting pictures with me, right? And because I'm having fun, and it's like, oh my God, can you make a funny photo? I'm like, yes. And this one guy comes, can you stand on my back? I'm like, how? I lie on the ground, stand on me. I'm like, okay, this is weird. All right. So if you'll find a picture of me standing and some German guy, and his wife laughing, internally, inside laughter. That's what they do. So anyway, I've told the story before at conventions, but people seem to like it. And Aaron Douglas, if you know who he is on Battlestar, is a good friend of mine. We're doing a panel together on Sunday, and he'll probably tell my story, which he does. I'm like, get your own material, God's sakes. But my parents are Scottish, and I was born in Scotland. But the character wasn't originally Scottish. They wanted him to be an accent of some sort. And I said to my agent, she called me up, there's a new show, Stargate, and I'm like, okay. I go, I did Stargate SG-1 before. She goes, yeah, it's a new spin-off of it. I'm like, cool. They want you to read for the Doctor. He's a reoccurring character, possible reoccurring character. I'm like, great. Any accent, and right away I read it. And in the pilot, it's quite funny because I'm sitting in the chair, I have to get out of the chair and all that. I'm like, Scottish, he's Scottish, I can sense it. Carson, Scottish. So I start doing it. And then the casting director, who's a very nice guy, he calls my agent up. His name's Stuart Akins. And he's sort of persnickety a little bit, but he's awesome. He's like, what accent is Paul doing? And Jamie's like, calls me. She goes, what accent are you doing? That's my agent. I said, I'm going to do a Scottish accent. Stuart, he's going to do a Scottish accent. No one will ever understand him. Tell him to do an English accent. Stuart says you can't do a Scottish accent, do an English accent. I said, well, no. She goes, I said, I want to do a Scottish accent. He wants to do a Scottish accent. No, tell him no one will understand him. I go, there are educated Scottish people. They do have doctors in Scotland. Not everyone talks like, they're, from Train Spotting, Although I love that movie. And so I said I can, so I walk in and I go to the audition, and it's in this little trailer on Bridge Studios, and it's a tiny little trailer. And he said to me, so, what are you gonna do? I said, I'm gonna do an educated Scottish accent. And he's like, okay. So he's already mad at me, right? I'm like, great. So I do the first scene. He's like, and just me and him in a trailer on camera. Do the first scene. He's like, that was good. Then I do the second scene. I was like, good. I do the third scene. He's like, okay, that was really good. Get out. And that was the first one cast in the show. With a Scottish accent. And I never went back into the trailer again. I never auditioned for it again. And she called me, and I was supposed to be going to Portugal for a film festival, this movie I did. And my agent said, you're not going, you can't go. I said, why? And she goes, we're doing the pilot. I'm like, oh, really? I go, how many days is it? She goes, it's like 9 or 10 days already. I'm like, really? And yeah, and they've got you written into the first 3 episodes. I'm like, really? Okay, so I'm not going to Portugal. So then we did the read-through, and all the characters were cast except for McKay. Cheeky bastard. David wasn't there, but we were up at the Bridge Studios in a big boardroom, and we're all sitting around this table, and all the MGM executives are there, and they asked me to come too, and I'm like, this is kind of exciting, right? So we're talking to everybody, and everyone's talking. Robert Patrick's there, and Joe Flanagan's there too. I'm talking to Joe. It was like, cool. We're just talking, and in the pilot, if you recall, but Beckett has one of the first lines of the pilot. So we're talking, but the only people that know I'm going to do it Scottish are the producers and the director, Martin Wood, because no one else has ever seen me or heard me do an accent. So we spend like 10 minutes or sandwiches, meet and greet, and they're like, okay, let's do the read, the read through. So I'm sitting here, and Rainbow, Son Franks, is sitting beside me, and Rachel's there, and Joe Flanagan's down there, and Robert Patrick, and they go, okay, and Martin says, okay, you all set, Paul? I'm like, yeah, I start, and someone's doing the, start too, and I go, I'm not getting that bloody shit, I'm not doing that for God's sakes, I'm not doing that. And I can sense everybody else kind of like, and Joe Flanagan looks at her and goes, is he doing a Scottish accent? And I'm like, that's right, Scottish. Anyway, we continue. I also have this joke with Joe, because Joe's, have you ever met Joe Flanagan, anybody? Great guy. But he's like very kind of like, all right, what are we going to do today? I go, we're doing a scene. Okay. It's kind of like that, and I pretend I'm Joe. I go, Paul, can I ask you a question? I'm like, yeah, Joe, what is it? Is your character Scottish? I'm like, yeah, we've been doing the show for 5 years. All right. Can I get some more hair product? I can say all these mean things about him because he's not here. Yeah, I beat him up once too. He won't admit it though. I wrestled him.
Rampage Fitness Academy is located at 23681 Via Linda, Suite A, in Mission Viejo, California, 92691. Call them at 949-830-7267. Cardio kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, regular boxing, yoga, or women's classes only. Rampage Fitness Academy has it all. Check them out at rampagefitnessacademy.com.